You're listening to Be Radiant Radio. You are made of light and you are made to shine. Positive, uplifting, and helpful. Welcome to the show where you'll get informational and inspirational ideas on how to unleash your potential, get what you want in life, and shine like you're meant to. Hi, I'm Angela Loeb, and thanks for joining me for this episode of Be Radiant Radio. Today's topic, The Shift, is actually the name of a reframing tool that I created years ago. But before I dive in and tell you all about it, I should probably explain what I mean by reframing. I know it sounds like I'm suggesting that you take a piece of art or a photograph that you've put in a frame and that you take it out and you reframe it, but I'm not meaning that version of the word. But really, I'm talking about the version of the word. Cambridge Dictionary defines it as to change the way something is expressed or considered. This is a technique that coaches and therapists like to use a lot. When we're reframing a thought, it means that we're changing the way we consider that thought. We're shifting our thinking so that we can see something in a new way. It gives us a fresh perspective. Long before I became familiar with the term reframe, shift was the word I was using. I had been exploring ways to shift one's attitude for a couple of years before I finally created this tool for myself and to help me with my self-talk. Now, self-talk, in case you don't know, is that ongoing monologue in your head. Psychologists like to call that self-talk, whether it's positive or negative. It's the internal chatter that comes from your thoughts. So I created this tool to help me publish my first book. It works so well over the years that I still use it every time I want to reframe my thinking and look at things from a fresh perspective, a fresh point of view. I call this tool, or exercise if you will, the shift. And it's an acronym too. Shift stands for subdue, hogwash, introduce, facts, and truth. Now, just in case you don't know what hogwash is, I should slow down there and tell you. It's slang. What it means is meaningless or insincere talk or writing. So hogwash is nonsense. So with the shift tool, you subdue the hogwash, the nonsense, and then you introduce facts and truth. So you reframe it with facts and truth. So the shift, it works very simply. You basically start with 2 columns on a page. I like to do this with pen and paper, but you could easily do it with a word processing or spreadsheet app. And in the first column, you write down the negative statement that you hear your inner voice telling you. This works really well because when you see it written there on the page in front of you or typed out on the screen in front of you, it holds a lot less power over you because now it's not just inside of you pinging around your head like some big monster, some negative monster. Instead, it's like outside of you. So now you can actually deal with it. So next, after you've written down that negative statement, next in the second column, opposite it, you write down whatever facts and truth that you can think of to overcome the negative statement. Here's an example. Your inner voice might say something like, my writing might not be good enough to get my book published. So you don't think your writing is good, your inner critic is criticizing your writing, and you don't think you can get your book published. Now that's what you would put in your first column. Then in the second column, you might come up with things like, fact, I don't know if it's good enough and if I don't try. Truth, if it's not good enough, I can keep working hard to improve my writing skills, especially if I get feedback on what to improve. Fact, it isn't always the best writers that get published because that's not the only measure of a book's worth. Fact, the publisher will have an editor who will edit the book anyway, no matter how wonderfully written it is. And here's one, truth, I can hire an editor to help me and I can publish my own book. So you see, I've shifted or reframed that negative thought, 5 times? Replacing it with other, more useful thoughts, a different perspective. Reframing is great for creating possibilities, and that's a great place to start. So you can reframe it, have a different thought. But I also love to add in some action to the mix. I'm really action oriented, especially if I'm stressed out. So if I'm dealing with something negative and I'm feeling stressed, action is so helpful to me. So reframing, it does require some creativity to reframe your thoughts, but to take it from creative thinking to creative action can be really powerful. So it helps when you add in a little action to the facts in the column where the facts and the truth go. So here's what I mean. I'll share a couple of actual examples from the first time I ever used the shift. I still have this notebook that I was using. It was back in March 2008. I was sitting in a coffee shop and I was reviewing my goals that I had created earlier that year. And one of my goals was to complete and publish the book that I had been writing off and on during the previous 4 years. And I made this huge promise to myself in December, January, that I would have it out by September 2008. And here I was, the end of the first quarter already, and I hadn't even made any real progress toward achieving my goals. I like achieving goals. So I decided it was high time to face whatever hogwash was going on in my head that was keeping me from making it happen, from taking action. So I started making a list in my notebook. One of the items that I listed was, I don't think I can make enough money doing this. So that was it. I don't think I can make enough money doing it. And opposite of that, I wrote down this. Put energy into it and it will manifest. You have proven that. There are many people making money at it. So make a list of heroes. Another item that I listed that I would now call, I put it in my hogwash column. And it was pretty dramatic. But it was metaphorical. And I wrote, what if I jump off the cliff and fall flat on my face? Of course, this was my way of saying, what if I fail spectacularly and in a public way? My answer in what I would now call the facts and truth column back then, what I wrote down was, what about building a parachute or some wings? Make a support structure. Perhaps do some networking in this area. Make a list of who could help. As you can see from what I wrote, I didn't just add facts and truth. I also added some action that I could take. So for the first one, make a list of heroes, that was easy. I looked at my bookshelf and I saw a dozen professional speakers and authors that I admired who had books on my bookshelf. And so I immediately felt reassured. I shut down the inner critic. I mean, if my heroes could do it, so could I, and so forth. Now, for the second one, the one about jumping off a cliff and falling flat on my face, I not only saw the truth that I didn't have to dive into my goal blindly expecting to fail, I also realized that I could build some structure to support myself. So what I did is I made a list of people who could help me. I connected with others in my network who had published books and asked them questions, which gave me information and inspiration so I could forge ahead. And I have a confession to make here now. I've just shared 2 from that list that day in this notebook. But what I did is actually wrote down 11 items. Can you believe it? 11 items that I wrote down in the hogwash column that day. 11 different worries, concerns, excuses, all very different. They weren't like variations on a theme. They were all unique 11 different worries. And I reframed every one of them on the spot. And it worked. I credit this exercise with getting me unstuck. It helped me shift my fears into constructive, creative thoughts, and that led to useful action steps. And even though I was off the mark by a few weeks that year, I did, in fact, publish my book in October 2008. So my goal was September, but I got it published in October. Look, we all have to deal with the inner voice of doubt, or whatever that inner voice is telling us, right? We all have self-talk that could do with some reframing from time to time. Are you holding yourself back for some reason? Could it be what that inner voice is telling you? You know what they say, right? If you keep doing what you've always done, and of course thinking what you've always thought, then you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. If it's time to shift forward so you can reach your goals and dreams, then empower yourself by using the shift tool to clear the way and get started. All right, so that does it for today's program. Real quick before I go, a reminder that you can reach me through my website. Just use AngelaLoeb.com. That's ANGELALOEB.com. And I also want to leave you with some final inspiring on-point words by the actor Chris Pine. He said, "The only thing you sometimes have control over is perspective. You don't have control over your situation, but you have a choice about how you view it." Isn't that awesome? That's awesome words to live by. Thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, keep on shining like you're meant to.